representing the Tropical Phyconomy Coalition Development, to give a welcoming speech and introduce our keynote speaker for today, Ian Nash. Anicia, the time is yours.
Okay, good afternoon and welcome to the second day of our TPCD1 webinar. To all the panelists, thank you for sharing your time and expertise for today's two sessions. The University's Hasanuddin for hosting, Jinyalg and Safe Seaweed Coalition for the financial support, and Dr. Alan, who led in organizing this webinar. It's really amazing to see and meet all the seaweed experts from the temperate to the tropics gathered since yesterday to shed more lights about their presentations and learn lessons from each other. Thank you for all the panelists and the facilitators. Today's sessions are equally interesting and engaging. So I encourage then all participants to join the QA and chat boxes for questions or comments, for interactions and active participation. It is with high hopes that this seminar will spark regional and international collaborations. Encourage further our colleagues to stay connected with one another even after this webinar. Again, welcome everybody to the second day of our TPCD1 webinar. We will start today's session with a plenary talk from a friend and a colleague in the world of euchematoids in the person of Dr. Ian Nash. Dr. Ian Nash is a Canadian phyconomist who has followed the path of his father, Arthur Charles Nash. He commenced a phyconomy vocation with commercial seaweeds in 1965 in his home province of Nova Scotia. He has worked all over the world, but since 1977, his work has been based variously in the Southeast Asian region, namely the Philippines, Malaysia, and Indonesia, where he lives and at present works with C6 Energy based in Bali as the director. The core of his phyconomy practice has been adaptive development of euchematoid seaweed value chains from within the private sector. Let's all welcome Dr. Ian Nash to talk about BBNet, a window to real problems of euchematoid farmers. Ian, your video.
Okay, let's see the video.
Your turn.
Somebody there has to push a button, I guess. Hello? Here we are.
Is there sound?
Yeah, there's no sound.
Hi, who's showing the video? Could we check the sound? Okay, Ian, you might have to do a voiceover.
Hello, my name is Ian Nash, and I'm an adaptive phyconomist, a seaweed farmer. Bibit is the Indonesian word for vegetative seaweed propagules, otherwise known as cuttings. These are often erroneously referred to as seedlings. So what is BBNet all about? BBNet will be a seaweed industry stakeholder collaboration that can alleviate farmer risk and enhance farmer rewards in Indonesia and other tropical countries. BBNet will support networking and capacity building of existing organizations. It will not reinvent the wheel. One for all and all for one. BBNet facilities will produce both goods and services. BBNet facilities will comprise sterile cultivar banks that feed biomass through nursery systems to commercial farms with farmer planting schedules in mind. BBNet goods will comprise healthy and certified biomass that comes as close as possible to meeting farmer and processor needs. And BBNet services will ensure proper management and specification of hatchery and nursery stocks, traced through entire value chains. What are BBNet attributes? BBNet will blend precision and adaptive phyconomy. BBNet will catalyze consolidation of the cultivar core that must be a foundation of responsible, profitable tropical phyconomy. BBNet must integrate into farm ecoscapes and local ecosystems. The BBNet system must be sustainable and anti-fragile. Cultivar identities should be traceable and certifiable from source to end user. Cultivar biomass must be productive and profitable as commercial seaweed crops. And cultivar types must be practical and robust as biomass foundations for seaweed farms. Cultivar should enhance food security and biosecurity of seaweed farms. Farmer needs and biomass source analyses are ongoing as a first step in building BBNet. So where in Indonesia is seaweed farmed, and what is it worth? Seaweeds have been farmed in most of Indonesia, as you can see in this map. Industry estimates of production for the three major farm genera is on the order of about 12 to 15,000 metric tons per month of Kappa-ficus, 10 to 12,000 tons a month of Gracilaria, and 2 to 3,000 tons a month of Eucuma. So that would be a total of about 25 to 30,000 metric tons per month. About 50% of the Kappa-ficus is farmed in Kalimantan Utara. About 25% of Kappa-ficus and 80 to 90% of Eucuma is farmed in Sulawesi. About 25% of Kappa-ficus and around 10 to 20% of Eucuma is farmed in areas throughout Indonesia. Most Gracilaria is farmed in South Sulawesi and Central Java. The area enclosed by the dotted blue line here can be tremendously productive in East Indonesia, but logistics costs impair links to value chains from that area. Confirmed data are unavailable, but informed estimates place current production volumes in the range of about 300 to 360,000 dry tons per annum for all of Indonesia. Now this is by informal industry consensus. By official government estimates, current production volumes of all types of seaweed from Indonesia are on the order of over 10 million wet tons per annum, and that would be over 1 million dry tons. That level of production puts about $500 million US, more than 7 trillion rupiah, into the accounts of seaweed farmers around the seashores of Indonesia. So what farmer needs would be met by BBNet? Well, to begin with, upwards of 50 to 60,000 Indonesian farm households need what BBNet proposes to offer. One of the most important is cost-effective recovery from seasonal crop failures, which are often associated with the ice malady. Some BBNet benefits? Well, there's best biomass for farm initiation, optimum crop mix for best prices, and rapid recovery from crop failures, as I just pointed out. In addition, farmers should get more crop cycles per year, better productivity per cycle, and millions of rupiah higher earnings annually. The bottom line is billions of rupiah in annual income for farm families. What cultivars would be produced by BBNet? Well, There's an expanding selection of globally available red, green, and brown seaweed cultivars. There are many cultivars that exist, are being commercially farmed, but are not readily available to farmers around the world. In all cases, with BBNet, cultivars would be identified and traced using molecular taxonomy techniques. What is the timeline and budget for BBNet? Well, BBNet is currently seeking funds for a 2-year, $250,000 development plan that would build on existing facilities and nursery locations. BBNet development is tied to Tropical Phyconomy Coalition development, as manifested by the workshop for which I made this presentation. You can follow some of what's going on by looking at the website at phyconomy.org. Please help us to build the BBNet initiative. Thank you for watching this presentation.
I would like now to turn over the microphone to the moderator and facilitator for the remaining of this webinar session.
Thank you very much. And along with my colleague, Dr. Inaya Yasir, I am Sudirman Nasir from Hasanuddin University, will facilitate our discussions this afternoon. And before we discuss further with other panelists, we are going to focus on dialogue with Dr. Naish in relations to the just presented presentations on BBNet, a window to real problems of accumulate farmers. And with us at the moment, there are several questions that we are going to ask. Actually, the questions were asked by the participants, and we hope that Dr. Naish will provide further elaborations. I will choose one of the questions. Dr. Naish, one of the question is, how will farmers from various regions engage with BBNet? And how, for example, the farmers stay in touch with one another, and how can they get daily prices or values for the sale of their raw materials? Could you please elaborate and respond to the questions?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
It is clear.
Okay. Well, first, I would like to say that the first step in making BBNet happen is this webinar that we're involved in today. Now, we were discussing how to make BBNet happen, and it was obvious that we needed to come from two ends of the spectrum, so to speak, from the precision phyconomy end with the academics and scientists and so forth, such as the ones we have involved in this webinar. At the other end of the scale, we need to engage farmers. And that is the next step that we will follow up on after this. Now, we've been engaging with farmers through Jasuda.net. I should have put the logo of Jasuda behind me today too. But our first method of contact with farmers throughout Indonesia is through the Jasuda network, through which we get data on prices and so forth from all over Indonesia all the time. And through Jasuda and focusing on various areas where we are very active and Jasuda is very active, we're undertaking basically a needs analysis based on discussions with farmers. Now, I spend as much time as possible in the field myself. And after all of this webinar stuff is over, I plan to get on the water and stay there as much as possible, going to farmer communities and assessing their needs. And basically, that's how we bring the farmers into it. In future webinars, I hope that there will be farmers involved, farmer group directly interfacing with the academia, bureaucracy levels that we're dealing with now.
Thank you, Dr. Leis, for these responses. And there are some follow-up questions from the audience. And one of them is the questions that asking about what are the primary factors affecting how much a farmer can get paid for the product. Is it a case that they can hold materials, or do they need to sell regularly to maintain a cash flow?
Well, what can I say? The seaweed market is an open, free market. Prices are not fixed. They are determined by the marketplace. The law of supply and demand is the overarching law that governs seaweed prices. I know farmers always complain about the price. Any farmer anywhere in the world farming anything, the first thing they will do when you interview them is they will complain about the price.
Yes.
So that's a given. Farmers will never be satisfied by the prices. But I think it's essential. You know, Dr. Jompa was talking yesterday about the pentahelix and was asked what's the main factor, most important factor, and he said industry. Well, I would go further than that, and I would say that value chain players must make a profit. The value at all level of value chains, every player has to make a profit, or the value chain breaks down, and then there is no seaweed business.
Yeah. There's
So
also. Yeah. Please continue.
So farmers have to make a profit. They can do that partly by getting a higher price and partly by being more productive so that their cost is lower. And that's what makes their margin.
Yeah. Yeah, there's also questions appear in questions and answer room about how this kind of initiative can be expanded to farmers in other countries, such as countries in South Asia, including India. How do you respond to that?
Well, I guess I got involved in spreading Southeast Asian technology to India by working in India from 2000 and 2004 in a project that was going on there. So it's really people like us who are participating in this webinar who are responsible for spreading around farm technology. Because it's not actually us scientists who have developed what I call adaptive phyconomy methods. It's really farmers who have adapted the methods. And we have been lucky enough to be able to travel around and meet farmers all over the place and record what we see different farmers doing. But honestly, I think it's true to say that every commercial cultivar of eucheumatoid seaweeds known today was found by farmers. And that the practical phyconomy by which they grow their crop was developed by farmers. And the main purpose that people like me have had is to connect among the farmers by traveling around the world and meeting farmers all over the place, and also by writing, manuals and conducting courses, which I have done with Ann Hurtado and very many other people over the years.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Nesh. And now from India, we move to questions from Indonesia from one of our participants, Pak Aslan, who mentions that in Indonesia's context, businessmen, academia, and also government agencies, particularly those from Indonesian Ministry of Marine Affairs and Fisheries, frequently discuss about production in relations to Indonesia's seaweed production data. And from those discussions, it was found that there is an urgent need for revisions of the production data because it tends to be higher than the real data in the field. And this is an important thing that need to be reviewed to maintain sustainability of Indonesian seaweed productions. How do you elaborate or respond to this phenomena that perhaps not just uniquely in Indonesia, but also apply to other countries in Southeast Asia?
Oh, okay. Well, I'll talk about the world. Of course, this is a tricky thing to discuss because I am a foreigner who lives and works in Indonesia. So discussing what the Indonesian government is doing is, well, they've been very supportive and helpful, but I must be careful what I say. But as I pointed out in the video that you just saw, there are government figures and there are industry figures, and the two are very wide apart. Roughly speaking, the government estimates of production are 3 or 4 times higher than the estimates I get from industry. But the fact of the matter is that nobody is out there actually measuring seaweed production. So we're dealing with estimates. And that is true worldwide. If you look at the FAO numbers, those are numbers that are given to FAO by the different the different countries that are involved in FAO. And as far as I know, almost all of them are estimates. Now, there are exceptions. The one exception I'm familiar with is in Zanzibar. There's only one port. Everything gets exported through that port. And therefore, they know exactly what is being exported. And they record those exact numbers. That's the only place where I've worked where I really, really knew what the production was.
Dr. Nash, and there's one more questions from the audience from participants, Peter van der Hayden, asking about the Seaweed Farmers Associations in Indonesia. And as we know, there are many in several regions in Indonesia. And can you mention some of those who are very actively at the moment? And how do you think the role of these associations can be further enhanced?
Well, they do a great job in pulling things together. For example, Arlie, which is run by my longtime friend, Safari Aziz. He's a real pioneer in developing seaweed farming in Sulawesi and actually all over Indonesia. And so Arlie is great at handling industry issues at large and so forth. And then there's Abdirli and various and sundry other official organizations. But the thing is that, you know, almost every farmer belongs to some kind of kelompok or group. And then those are in turn are kind of consolidated at the community level and then at the kabupaten level and so forth. And in pulling together farmer interests on that, I must give full marks to KKP and DKP, the fisheries ministries throughout Indonesia, who have a lot of people very active, integrating with farmers and performing a very constructive role in helping this whole industry to develop. And it's been that way ever since we started back in the 80s. We've always had, from my first meeting with Dr. Habibi in 1988, he said that they would provide support at the government level, and they have delivered on that promise.
Thank you again for the responses. And now I think we are going to move to other panelists in these third sessions. They're focusing on lesson learned and also roadmap for further development in tropical phyconomy. But before we move to that, I would like to invite my colleague, Dr. Inaya Yasir to introduce all panelists in this session. Dr. Inaya, time is yours. Once again, thank you very much, Dr. Nesh.
Hey, you're welcome.
Thank you, Dr. Sudirman.